This podcast is sponsored by the Faraday Battery Challenge, which aims to support world-class scientific, technology development and manufacturing scale-up capability for batteries in the UK.
The challenge is focused on developing cost-effective, high-performance, durable, safe, and recyclable batteries to support the EV market. If you want to find out more, make sure to go to www.faraday.ac.uk. Welcome to the See Me Be Me podcast. I'm Nile Henry.
And my name's Blair Henry.
And we are two brothers who set out on a mission to make motorsport and STEM careers more diverse, affordable, and inclusive. We are the founders of the Blair Project.
This podcast series delves into the minds of inspirational individuals who come from ordinary and often humble backgrounds, but through their belief, dogged determination, and never give up attitude, have managed to overcome academic, social, or mental challenges to achieve their dream careers.
Our guests will share their life lessons that you too can apply to your own. We hope their stories will inspire you to go further, aim higher, and accept nothing less than you deserve. Your ambition, your purpose is all within. We're here to help you unlock it. The planet of possibilities are endless.
You know who made it.
So, on today's episode, we are joined by Azhar Quaiyoom, a highly motivated entrepreneur and chartered engineer. Azhar is the founder and CEO of Q Sustain, a design and engineering consultancy that works across construction and rail, providing strategic support and solutions, helping companies become more sustainable.
That's right, Blair. So in today's episode, we interview Azhar to find out a bit more information about his company, Q Sustain, how he got it started, his life before being an entrepreneur, working in the corporate sector, and how was that transition from corporate into being an entrepreneur and running his own successful business. We also discussed about his background and his life as a kid growing up, who his role models were, but also as well we talk about some things like diversity inclusion and how he's championed diversity inclusion within the rail and construction sector. A very exciting episode. We can't wait for you to hear it. So what are we waiting for? Let's go straight in. Hello and welcome to the See Me Be Me podcast. Today we are joined by a very special guest, Azhar Quaiyoom from Q Sustain. Welcome, Azhar.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
So Azhar, tell us a bit about yourself, what you do, and a little bit about the Q Sustain.
Sure. So thanks for the introduction. As you know, I'm Azhar Quaiyoom. So I'm the managing director of a consultancy called Q Sustain, really specialist in sustainability initiatives and solutions. We're also engineers, and we work predominantly in the rail sector. So our kind of big work and aims at the moment are to decarbonize the rail sector that actually is quite high intense in energy consumption, actually one of the biggest in the country in terms of, like, say, Network Rail consume the highest amount of energy to run the trains, run the stations, depots. They're actually one of the biggest landlords in the country as well. So a lot of our work is within the rail sector for that reason. And we have a big passion around decarbonisation, reducing energy, reducing carbon, and also, more importantly now than ever, is reducing cost as well. It's a lot about what we do.
Now, Q Sustain, where did the idea come from, and what year did you found? What year did you create Q Sustain?
So we've been going for 9 years, and the idea had been there for a while because around about 2007-8, when we had the kind of bit of a downturn economy, I was seconded to a big project for the redevelopment of Birmingham's new train station, New Street Station, and I was a chartered engineer by then. I was working as on the engineering side and the design side there, and I was asked to go down to a project for about 6 months on kind of secondment. I ended up staying there for more than 7 years, like you do on many secondments like that. But it was a huge project. It was over £700 million at the time. It was one of the biggest refurbishments within Europe. it was there to kind of change the whole kind of landscape of the city centre in Birmingham, because it wasn't just a rail station project. There was so much more to it around social value, job creation, employment, the economic kind of regeneration of the area around there. And it was a very strategic and important project, but one where I've kind of found myself coming out of a lot of design engineering, working with a big consultancy, and coming into a project like that with Network Rail and others. I kind of just saw loads of opportunity about doing things differently on big kind of infrastructure projects of that size and scale. And one very important aspect of that was sustainability and leaving a legacy for a big sustainable project. And being quite early on in the project, the team was quite small. I was kind of had that opportunity, and I just put my hand up really and said, look, I think we need to think differently with this project. You know, what's going on with low carbon technology, what's going on with the innovation side. And to my surprise at the time, there wasn't that much there on paper. There were some ideas floating around, but there's more seriousness around some big kind of issues of how we keep the station operational, how we keep passengers flowing, how we keep the health and safety aspects of the things while the works are going on. One of the biggest challenges was keeping that station running while there's a massive redevelopment going on around it. And that made it quite kind of bitty and made a lot of stages for the works to flow through. And other things like, you know, looking at low carbon tech innovation. If you think about 2008-9, sustainability, climate action wasn't as hot a topic as it is today. And certainly impacts of that wasn't really being felt as much then as you can see now around the world. But it was there, and it was something that I was quite passionate about at the time. I could see that things would only get worse if we didn't deal with that. And we were at a stage of a project where we were doubling the size of the energy demand going into the station, because we were expanding the station 4 times the size it used to be, including like something like 38 new escalators, 20 odd new lifts. You know, so we're increasing the energy profile and demand for all the right reasons to create more compliant station, more friendly for, you know, disabled people, create that connectivity between different parts of the city, so opening it up a lot more and really providing a station fit for the future and a futuristic station that can deal with the increased demand on the railway, because railways are increasing more and more in terms of the demand. So it was all designed to do all the right things, but inherently we're increasing demand and energy. In doing so, we're increasing our carbon footprint and our carbon emissions. And as a design engineer at the time, I just thought it's not really comfortable with the way this is going. You know, we shouldn't just be saying, right, give me another 2 MVA from the grid and, you know, more 2,000 kilowatts, whatever we needed, megawatts. Sorry, so it just wasn't comfortable. And that's when I really started to ask and push the boundaries. And I was kind of, I'd say, by the right place at the right time on a project that size and scale with the right team and right people around us, who were there willing to listen. You know, respect to the people at the time in Network Rail and Mace as principal contractor, who's working with very closely, who then really give me that kind of platform to come up with these ideas, work with the designers who were at Kins, and push the boundaries. And really, that's what I was doing. I was just pushing the boundaries, seeing what we can do in terms of energy, carbon, and that opened up to biodiversity, to waste, to rainwater harvesting, and reducing our demand on water for toilet flushing and things like that. And we ended up working through some really tough years of really hard graft, but coming up with a lot of solutions around what can be done. And in the end, there was a lot of first for a station of that kind. That was, you know, proud to be a part of and proud to work with quite a hard-working, high-powered team to help deliver that. So it was really from there then that coming towards the end of that, I thought, you know, can't just be going back into a normal role again. I really wanted to see where else I could apply a lot of this experiences that had come now and a lot of learning. And that's when really Q Sustain was born. Yeah, it was just never looked back since really. It was a tough one to kind of leave the role. There's a lot of risks around that, you know, but you know, it was something I became really passionate about. I just wanted to see where this would take us. And yeah, we started in Network Rail and others kind of give us work straight away. So I was very fortunate with that. And then just slowly been chipping away and growing our team and our offering. And now we're not just working with Lights Network Rail, work with a lot of the rail operators from Avanti to Northern, Westminster Trains, and others who are now working in the housing sector on low carbon homes and social housing, and line side developments. So yeah, it's been a journey. It's been a journey, not easy journey. But alongside of that, when we started Q Sustain year on year, there's been a lot more interest in decarbonisation, in climate action. So the narrative around that is really becoming, more apparent. It's more and more in the media, which is good, and it needs to be, because the situation is very serious. I read something quite recently, actually, it was on LinkedIn. It's like we're all on a plane, but a lot of us are in business class and first class. But if the plane goes down, we're all going down with it. And it doesn't matter what class you sat in, you're going to suffer the effects of a catastrophic failure or a crash. And that is pretty much where a lot of us are at the moment in our daily lives. We're all sat in business class, first class, and no one's really looking out and thinking, if there's an engine on fire or something's going on, and we're pretty much, a lot of us are just carrying on in our daily lives in quite a capitalist structure, and therefore, that step change needed to help avoid a catastrophic failure on climate action and a runaway climate change, and the effects of that is becoming more and more apparent, more and more dangerous, really. And it's if we don't act now, it's going to be really bad for future generations. So a lot about what I wanted to achieve with Q Sustain was, right from the start, I always used to put a slide when I used to present to people of holding two balls. One's profit, which every business wants to make and be successful, but the other one was purpose. And I always wanted to do something that had a bigger purpose than just being an entrepreneur and just being successful. Because, today everyone measures your success on material success and, what you achieve. And then, people then start posting pictures with a nice fancy car and things like that. Say, look what we've achieved. And sadly, the reality is that there's, we need to be doing a lot more in terms of social value. And alongside that, the great thing with sustainability is you've got the main three pillars. Yes, you want to have the environmental impact in terms of your carbon reduction, reducing waste, increasing biodiversity. But there's the economic side to make sure there's a business case around everything that you do. And we're doing a lot of number crunching around a lot of these solutions we put together. But the social value side is one that often gets overlooked as a third pillar in sustainability. And that is a lot around diversity, inclusion, fuel poverty, training development, apprenticeship schemes, empowering a lot of the younger generation. And therefore, with Q Sustain, there's a massive ethos around that. We guest lecturing at universities. We put a lot of our time into guest appearances around a lot of the lectures at unis and colleges now as well. And that's something that is really important to us, to get that message across, that you can have a career in sustainability related to environmental management. It could be commercial sustainability, it can be engineering sustainability, it can be economic, it can be loads of different areas you can do this in. But just really go out there and make a change. And really, that's a lot of the message we apply in what we do. And that's why we have a young dynamic team as well, to try and empower them and hit the ground running, really. So there's a lot of kind of areas and a lot of thought that went into creating Q Sustain, and there's still a long journey ahead to where I'd really like to be in terms of that vision. But we're slowly but surely making progress, which is good.
That's really inspiring, Azhar. It sounds like it's been quite a journey for yourself and the team over the last, was it 9 years since you got started? Last 9 years. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, Azhar, just in terms of just your journey from the beginning of your organization to where you are now, what would you say are 3 unique skills that helped you to become successful?
3 unique skills. So I think one of them, a very important one, is actually your interpersonal skills. It's how you engage with your clients. Yeah. I think client engagement and that client interaction is very valuable. Thank God we're very fortunate. I've never marketed, never advertised, never done anything like that. Yeah. Because a lot of our work has been repeat work and it's been word of mouth. So all the new clients we've got has always been a referral. So it's always been a contact that we've had, a relationship that we've had. So I think the softer skills around interpersonal skills and communication skills, having that is absolutely key. And sometimes we look at other companies and they're quite rigid in their approach, and we always go above and beyond. So if we have a scope of works, say go and do an energy survey, come up with some numbers and stuff, we always look at other ways that we can help. If something like thermal imaging and building fabric wasn't in the scope, we'll add it in and just take our camera with us and we'll just do it. And we'll show them to the client and say, actually, did you know how much heat's being lost through that wall or through that window or through that air gap and things like that? So that's one of them. Another one I'd say is is hard work, really, because that's a core skill.
Yeah.
You can't shy away from. I know you should definitely try and have that work-life balance, but for any entrepreneur in starting up a business, there is sacrifice there. So hard work, and the third one probably get ready to sacrifice is something you is the reality of it. As much as you want to try and avoid it, there are sacrifices to be made in terms of, well, you can't have that movie night that night because you're on a deadline. You have to cancel your meet up with your friends because you've got another deadline on. You've got to jump on a call, or you've got to get on a train to a certain place. So I think out of them, I'd say they're the kind of three core things that would make it things a success, really.
And then just following on from that as well, it's just who would you say, let's say growing up when you were younger, who would you say was the most influential person in your life, and how did they impact you in terms of helping to build you are into who you are as a person and also in business in general?
So that's quite an easy one for me, because I'd like to. You probably get answers if you ask that question to a lot of people, as people like myself would probably say, like some Muhammad Ali or something like that. Obviously that's slightly before my time. I'm not quite that old yet, but to me, my motivation, inspiration, and that role model was my father. He'd first generation from the Asian community, South Asian communities, to come over to England. And I think a lot of our now second, third generation of immigrants in the UK underestimate the sacrifices that generation made. My father came from actually Kenya, so moved from Pakistan to Kenya, grew up there, and he had a very kind of rural, very sustainable upbringing, really. Everything was organic. They used to tell us, nature was all around them, and they respected that and they worked with that and not against it. They didn't build up high walls and big concrete structures and get rid of gardens and things like that for driveways. It was a big motivation for me, because even from a young age, I remember my father talking about things like having recycling bins for glass and for plastics and things like that before we had different color bins. I remember as a kid him saying if we had that. And one particular story I remember is always something I actually put in some of our guest lectures is when I'm talking about innovation, not being scared of innovation, coming up with ideas. Is my father had a Datsun 120Y back in the day. People know Datsuns and what's now modern day Nissans. And he kept it for at least 13 years. I remember his big estate, red car. And growing up, we used to, that was our family car. And he used to pull up at the red lights, and times wasn't easy in them days. And money was always, was always a challenge. And he turned the car off at the red lights, and my mum would be arguing, saying, "Why are you doing that?" In this, because when it went green, it wouldn't always start up in time, because it wasn't like electronic motors like you have today. So you wait for the lights to go green, start up. Obviously, there'd be delay. Person behind always be doing the horn, saying, "Hurry up." And he used to say, "Wouldn't it be great if the engines had an automatic on-off when you pull up at the lights?" And now you see auto on-off start, which is now actually mandated on new vehicles. It save about 10-15% of your fuel over a typical year. So that is now his practice amongst vehicles. So he used to think, he had these ideas back then, going 30 years ago. And I'm sure if he had the platform, he would have been a great innovator. He would have been a great person if he was running Q Sustain. So sadly, he's got dementia now, but I can't have them kind of engagements and talk about them funny moments in the past. But he was a massive kind of motivation, because all I saw him do was work really hard to try and raise us, give us a good upbringing, give us an education. He was always pushing us, saying, always do your best. I don't mind what you do, but always do your best, try your best, and be a good person in doing that, and help others, because he was always helping family, always helping friends wherever he could. And that's, to me, a great legacy for me to try and pass on to my children, and keep that kind of ethos within Q Sustain as well. So he was a massive kind of motivation for me, and still is today, despite the fact that he's struggling health wise and everything. That's part of the sacrifice that he gave. But yeah, no, he's been a massive motivation. I'd say second to that, then I'd go back to Muhammad Ali. Actually, has been he was a great character for me. I always admire what he did, and he always put honesty and truth first before his career. His career suffered as a result. He lost years in prison, again trying to stand up for for justice and truth for his people. And I think that's sadly something that's being lost today, because we all just try and conform, and we see injustices around the world. And sadly, we just, a lot of us are quite scared to speak about things like that now. But no, I'd say definitely Muhammad Ali was another one, closely followed by Nelson Mandela. So they're the kind of role models I aspire to.
Muhammad Ali is one of my personal idols as well. Recently bought his autobiography a couple of months back as well. So he's one of my probably one of my three main idols. To be honest, it's just the story of the civil rights era and where he got to in boxing. Just easily one of my top role models. So I definitely see the reasons why for Ali there.
Oh, definitely.
Azhar, I want to just keep you in that state of in your childhood right now.
Okay.
8-year-old Azhar, what did he always dream of being an engineer, or just take me back? What were you like at a very young age, and are you following your dream job, or did you want to be something else?
So to be honest, I never really had a set goal. I was at one point, from the age of kind of like 8 onwards, I was very big in cricket and sport. And to a point where I thought I'd be a professional cricketer, because I was kind of rising up the ranks and played at Cheshire County, and I was doing quite well from a young age, but it kept me really focused on, I think sport keeps a lot of youngsters in check and focus, because when you get to a good level, it keeps that level of discipline. So I used to get lost in my cricket every summer. I was just playing all weekends, all hours, everything, from a young age. So to me, I thought I was going to be a professional sportsman or professional cricketer and stuff. And them times you had the likes of Imran Khan and Javed Miandar, Wasim Akram, Malcolm Marshall, Viv Richards, all the real proper, real characters, really good cricketers, Ian Botham and the like as well. So for me, that era was amazing, because you had all these really great characters. I used to spice to copy their action in bowling and batting and everything. And it also took me in a place where it takes you away from, everyday challenges. Like I said, it wasn't easy for our family to raise us. Money was always a challenge. My dad was a bus driver for 25 years. And, he worked very, very hard. And that was kind of taking me into a zone where you could almost like just put your passion and strength into that. But coming up beyond that, then to teenagers, and then again, focus was my studies. And at the time, still I was not confused, but I used to love science. I used to love not so much maths, but it's definitely some science. I always had that inquiry, inquisitive mind. So I knew maybe engineering was something for me, because I always wanted to know how things were made, right down to its raw material. How's it coming out of the ground? How did it get to that stage? How did it get to the next stage? So I was very inquisitive like that. So I always kind of knew that engineering would be one area I'd be very keen to explore, and hence I did. But I think growing up, it wasn't really, I kind of knew. I just knew that it'd be something around the kind of creating, design, engineering kind of way forward in terms of career. But no, I think I was quite fortunate to be in that era of without computer games and locked in with computers and things like that. The outdoors were great, when you had that, wasn't a safety risk, was out all hours playing on our bikes and things like that. So it was quite a carefree kind of environment. And although you didn't have much, there's all that love there with family and friends and stuff in the community. But I said growing up was almost a focus around sport, definitely. And then later on in the years was focused on education and really just trying to help the family, because I saw the struggles, and my father getting older, and then he developed some sort of heart disease and heart trouble, and I was coming into college era then, and I could see that his working 7 days and grafting for us was taking a toll. So for me, focus was get college, get done, A-levels, degree, get your degree, and then start work straight away, so I can help retire them off, really. And that was always a massive focus for me, just to stay focused focus on the goal ahead, and just be successful in anything you do.
And that's very interesting that you said that about, you came from a sporting background and sport taught you to be disciplined. On episode 2 of our podcast, we had Roosevelt, who's from the Grove Company, and he mentioned that sport played a major factor in his life and getting him to be a director of working skills at the Grove Company. And that one of his role models was his sports coach, because it taught him discipline. It taught him how to, work as a team. And so one of the things that I'd like to talk about is going back to your entrepreneurial journey and going back to that point where you were working. I believe you were working for Arab at the time before you. Was it Arab before you started Q Sustain?
It was Abden Mace, who the principal contractors when I was at Birmingham New Street. Seconded into Network Rail, actually. So they seconded me to the client team.
Right, okay, with Mace. And, you know, for a lot of people, you know, don't take that jump into entrepreneurship because of the risk of, oh, I might fail, I might get it wrong, you know, I'm going to have to put my own money into this and, you know, I need to be able to pay the bills. You know, what was it for you that allowed you to, you know, take that risk and take that plunge and leave that, you know, 8 till 6 job or whatever it is to go off and achieve your journey? Was it always that thing in the back of your mind that you wanted to retire your parents and you wanted to, you know, it was freedom? You know, what was it that made you want to take that plunge into being an entrepreneur?
So there's a couple of factors. I think one of the things I probably missed into a young age, I'm talking about sport and focus, was I still did have that probably bit of hunger in terms of entrepreneurship. And I remember when the likes of Jawbox Clothing came out, you know, it was a person background Asian community. We had kind of some family links to them, and I saw them come on TV and everything. And I thought to myself, you know, his father was of my generation, my dad's generation, went through the same kind of difficulties and everything. And he started up a little clothing company, exploded into Jawbox, became international. And we had some family members that kind of not quite to that scale, but also did very successful in business, and within clothing. And I thought to myself, it'd be great. And I remember I used to sketch certain logos of a brand of my own when I was young, thinking, oh, I could do some sort of clothing here, and or I could do something else or something. So I always had that thought around then. And then the other thing is when I was coming towards the end of the project and I was really itching to start something, Q Sustain, you always need that kind of mentor to give you that push. Now I always had family support behind me, which was great in anything I did. And you know, my parents were always praying for me and blessing them. They'd always support me in something like this. But you're absolutely right. There was definitely that fear. And I'd say I'm quite risk averse. I don't like taking big risks, especially when it comes to like money and things like, because once you're kind of set in a career, you're doing well in a career, you kind of think, why are you taking on this extra headache? Why, like, you know, burn yourself out and you're going to have all these challenges. And yes, I do have all them challenges because now you're looking at your own accounts, your business development, you're actually doing the work. And, you know, day to day there's loads of challenges and issues where you think, oh, I'd have been better in a 9 to 5. But at the time, I just saw a gap in the market. And also there was a person who became quite close to me, was working on the project with, it's called Rob. I'm sure he doesn't mind me mentioning this, but he was one of the key people at the time who also gave me that push, and said, you know, he'd started up his own little kind of consultancy as well on a small scale. And he said, look, he goes, the stuff you're doing is the future. You know, you are you are coming up with solutions and things. And I'm always self-critical of myself, never think I'm doing that well, doing good enough in something. And, you know, he gave me that push and kind of confidence, because I always thought that, you know, it's a bit of confidence being lacked here to make that push. Because like I mean, it's always risk averse, I'm always self-critical. And I think I'll never do a proper job, won't be good enough, things like that. But, you know, there's always that one person, I think, in people's journey that give you that kind of push. And that person did give me that push and said, you can do this. I've done it. This is how you do it and set it up. And this is how you go on company's house. And I didn't know anything like that. I'd never set up a company. I'd never run a company. I'd never been in, you know, in that kind of stage. And I was kind of given a bit of a like mentorship in that sense by Rob as a close friend as well. We became close friends. And yeah, he gave me that push to say, set this up. The hardest thing then was to go to my employer and say, I'm leaving. To be honest, that was probably the hardest thing, because I was getting lined up for, you know, fast track to certain things, and on a program for management and senior management. I think that was the hardest thing for me, because I had a good relationship with everyone in the team and my seniors and everything. But once I got past that hurdle, I'm actually still obviously working. I'm actually working still with the companies that employed me on consultancy basis on certain projects, which is great because, you know, no bridges were burnt. still in touch with them and everything, and seeing what we're doing, and to be honest, they respect it, and they're like, yep, this looks really good. So always get that feedback on LinkedIn and others, and always keep in touch with them. But yeah, I think as a character in them days, I was very much risk averse. I was like, this isn't me. But I just thought it's now or never. And I really thought that. I thought, if I don't do this now, I know that this is going to be an area, and other people said it as well, that is only going to grow. We need that innovation. We need these kind of companies. We need these people to create this change that is needed to avoid a catastrophe. And that's exactly that I mentioned. And I thought, well, there's a purpose to this. Yeah, I don't want to be an entrepreneur. And your example there about, your vision about retiring your family and things like that. That was all part and parcel, but there was no guarantees. There was no guarantees that, you'd do well, you'd be successful. And when I did settle, you mentioned you go back 9-10 years. Again, sustainability wasn't as high on the agenda then. It was still a fight. It was still a kind of, do we really have to do this? And it was more your local authorities, your network rails, and your public kind of bodies that were pushing that agenda. But a lot of the private companies were still around bottom line profit. It's, if we've got surplus money, we'll spend it on sustainability, we'll spend it on this, we'll spend it on energy and carbon and things like that. Now it's kind of like, it's now CSI, ESRs. You see all these buzzwords now about corporate social responsibility and environmental social strategies and governance. Now it's like all these things that people want to do and want to invest in, and they can see the value in it. Back then, when we started, that wasn't the case. You were still kind of fighting against the grain there. So there was a lot of work to do to convince clients and people that this is what we do and you should be doing this. This is the right thing to do, and it will help you. And now the solutions that we'd worked on are definitely helping customers and clients today, because energy prices have gone so high as well. So it's helping them on the economic side, as well as their footing in terms of decarbonisation and the journey there under ESG. So yeah, it wasn't an easy decision.
My next question, Azhar, I guess it's more of a personal question to yourself, but how do you want to be remembered in terms of, like your legacy in business and where you want to get to in the future? How would you like people to remember you?
As a disruptor, I would say. Disruptor in the business and the sectors that we work in, and really setting a new bar is, if I'd like to kind of leave that kind of reputation legacy as, this is the company that did X, Y, and Z for us, and other companies have followed suit since. And as a small team, we are very fortunate to be involved in some quite high level, quite innovative kind of projects, first of its kind. We'll look at things like solar carports, PPAs, power purchase agreements, carbon neutral stations and depots and things like that. These are all quite first of its kind, where a lot of the big players are thinking, we need to be in that space, and they may well be in other client areas. But I think if it's to be remembered, be as a disruptor, as an innovator, really.
And you face
for the right reason as
well. Do you face multiple barriers day to day, like a day-to-day job and whatnot?
Oh gosh, yeah, definitely. I think every day is a challenge, but deadlines are tight. A lot of the time we get pushed for outputs and things like that. But it's all part and parcel, I think, of running a business. And but yeah, barriers we definitely are faced. I think we're facing issues around skills shortages in the sector we work in. There's definitely shortage of skills there. So, I'm taking fresh graduates on that are not experts in the field, but I train them up quite vigorously. I empower them, believe in them, because a lot of them coming out straight out of university with only some kind of summer experience or experiences as a year out or something like that. But I believe in them, and I think we don't do that enough. There's we seem to think age is this kind of barrier where, if you're in your 20s, you're too young to speak to a client, or you're too young to do X, Y, and Z. We get them in at the deep end, and a lot of the time we have to. And I think that's good, because I find it really valuable, and I find it really pleasing that when I look at a graduate when he's first started and they've been quite really shy and timid, etc., and then you see them through like a year later of working with them, and all of a sudden they're doing presentations and they're client facing and they're coming up with ideas and solutions. You kind of sit back and you think, wow, like less than 12 months ago, you were really shy in a meeting, you won't say a word or something, and now looking, and that's really kind of rewarding to see that. But no, every day is a big challenge, I think, and it's for small businesses. Them challenges are really, are quite vivid. Trying to tender for projects, try and do bids while you're doing the work. Big companies have teams dedicated just to do the bid writing and do this and do that. We're doing everything at the same time. We're doing the work while we're tendering, while we're bidding, while we're looking at new projects, while we're finishing in our accounts and paying our taxes and things like that. Everything's just coming to you, bombarding you at once, day and night. So that isn't easy, and that is a big challenge to try and manage your time. There's just not enough time, is there?
No, there isn't enough time in the day. And just for the viewers listening as well, that Q Sustain is actually based in the same premises as the Blair Project. And for everybody that's listened to Blair and I over the last couple of episodes, or have known us for quite a while, we are massive advocates for diversity and inclusion, especially in the sectors of engineering, digital, and tech. And you too, as a big advocate on D&I, and like you said, you are a disruptor. So, can you tell us what D&I means to you, and what is the rail sector? Is it diverse?
The answer is no, and there's a lot of work to be done. So D&I, to me, as you probably know, we've had these conversations, is a massive part of what we believe in and the way we want to move the business forward. Want to give everyone an equal footing, an equal chance. When we've taken CVs, I always make sure it's a diverse pool of CVs here. I think a lot of corporates say they're diverse and they want to be diverse, but when you look at the actual figures, they're not. And I think there's a big realization where they're struggling to realize actually why. So I think there's sadly still a lot of challenges, particularly in the sectors we work in. And I've been quite open about this. And to be honest, the likes of chief execs within a lot of the rail companies, organizations admit a lot of this. So this isn't anything controversial, anything that I'm bringing up. But when you look at a train station, for example, and a big station, let's take Manchester Piccadilly that we all travel through, you will see quite a diverse pool of staff and people around you that quite represent the communities of Manchester. But when you start rising up the ranks into senior management of some of these organizations, that changes quite drastically in the top tier of management, so boardroom level, for example. And there needs to be more work around why that is. Is it institutional? Is it something, it's not right? And because it's not a case of skill sets and everything, because definitely skills are there across all communities. And, the right person needs to be in the right job. That's absolutely no question around that. But is everyone being given an equal footing? And I'm facing this in our own community, in our own kind of even family circles of youngsters and youth who actually feel that they won't probably go into business not for the wrong reasons, actually, because they feel actually if they went into careers, they won't be given an equal opportunity to progress into senior kind of levels. And I always question that and try and break that in conversation, say, actually, no, that's just your brain thinking that's the case. But when you think about it, what role models in big corporate organizations do people of ethnic and diverse backgrounds actually have? And when you look around, when you're looking around, there actually isn't that many. And we have to ask ourselves, why is that? If you look at Greater Manchester alone, what we've got at least 20% of the communities from ethnic background. And when you look at big organizations, let's just take Greater Manchester, if you look on their board, you won't have 20% mix of diversity in there. How many companies have got that at a senior level? So questions have to be asked, why is that still the case when we're trying to break down these barriers and everyone is trying to be diverse and inclusive? Nobody knows in Greater Manchester alone, businesses from SMEs, what is a background of where contracts are being won and let. That's not being tracked. No one's tracking that. So we don't even have the data to even assess the extent of this problem. But there is a big problem. And in the sector we're in, I think there's definitely challenges there. And there's barriers to be broken. And I think we're quite lucky because we've been very fortunate with a lot of our client base and people we're working with absolutely understand that. And they've been great advocates around diversity inclusion. They really love what we're doing around that space. So hats off to the people who are working in organizations like Network Rail and Avanti, Northern Rail. These companies have been amazing the way we speak to them. They love when we talk to them, and they see it ourselves because they see it themselves in terms of they look at our team and they know we're so diverse. We've got staff, we've had people from the Lebanon, we've got background from India, we've had people from Ghana background, and ourselves from an Asian background, and we've got Anglo-Saxon, everyone. So there's a real good mix in our team, and I hope that continues. But then you have to yourself, why, if we can do it and we're doing okay, why is not everyone else really on that page? And we know from facts that there is a massive percentage of CVs that go out, and if people reviewing them CVs, if the name isn't consistent with what they're used to, it kind of goes to one side, and that is a fact. There's been a lot of experiments around this and studies done around this. So barriers need to be broken. I think everyone needs to keep open mind, and all is that needs to happen is to keep a fair society and give everyone an equal chance, no matter what your name, background, gender, ethnicity, whatever. It's just having the right skills that this person has achieved and worked hard for to be given the right opportunity. And that is something that I'm really passionate about. I've faced prejudice myself in the workplace, so I know how it feels to feel deflated and you feel not part of society, even you're not part of the workplace. And it can really affect you. It can really deflate you. And you just think, am I really going to get somewhere in this space or in this place? So there's still a lot of work to be done in some of these big, large organizations. I think there's a realization there's work to be done. But the worry is it's there on paper in policies and strategies, but is it really being implemented? And I think that's where business leaders in our communities and the work that you guys are doing in respect to what you are doing is really getting out there, creating these organizations like Burn and others, and getting all these business leaders in, getting these big organizations in and asking the question directly and giving us the chance, like us, to ask the question as, what can we have a chance at this, and why haven't we had a chance at this, and what are we doing wrong that others are doing right? And we're finding that challenge, that there still is that challenge there. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done, where it's all kind of like, special handshake. Yeah, you've got that contract, or you've got that relationship, or you're on the same golf course or something together. So yeah, that needs to change. All we need in society is fairness and equality, the right people for the right job, and everyone being given an equal chance, no matter what your background. But sadly, you can see yourself. I just mentioned Greater Manchester, the mix of how diverse our community is. That is clearly not represented. Now, if you go down to likes of London, the Midlands, we've got a greater mix there of people, but look at the boardrooms there around big companies that are doing really well, really successful. And it just creates issues. It creates a lot of social issues, and it creates a lot of, issues around inclusion. So things definitely need to change.
And absolutely, we've seen that a lot ourselves with our experiences in business. But would you say that change is happening at a good enough rate or not a fast enough rate? And then also, just on top of that, in terms of diversity inclusion, do you still feel that we're a long way off in terms of proper representation within the workplace in like senior positions and whatnot?
I would say yes. We are a long way off. I think there's the shoots of equality, signs that the fact we've got now the first Prime Minister of an ethnic background, we've got a London Mayor from an ethnic background, we've got Manchester Mayor now as well, first Muslim lady. So that they are great kind of ways forward, big strides forward. Great motivation for creating good role models within our communities. But it's not happening fast enough, and it's kind of few and far between. It's almost like you feel, yes, right, there's a prime minister now from a certain background, right? Great, job's done, and anything else going below that is kind of like fine because we've got something there representing. No, it's not the case. There's still lots of barriers to be broken, and sadly, I think a lot of society is still kind of going more towards the right, and there's unfairness in the way we see like with immigrants and immigration and global conflicts and what's going on there as well. So I still think there's a lot of work to be done. I don't think it's going fast enough, and the numbers are representing that. Like I said, you look at the mix of communities compared to senior management in organizations, that speaks for itself, really.
Yeah.
And various studies done around people feel uncomfortable in the workplace. This high proportion, still people surveyed that felt they were comfortable because of their background, ethnicity, religion, color of skin, things like that. So definitely there's a lot of work to be done to create that kind of equality.
And in terms of your industry, who is the person who is the brand that you look up most to, or who's the single individual that you think, oh, do you know what, like this person has inspired me to join or carry on in this industry?
In the industry, I mean, there's a few in the client organizations of what people working within in Network Rail and contracts team. There's a few key kind of characters there. I won't name because I don't want to embarrass them yet, but I would say that there's been a few great kind of sponsors who have seen what we've done and really give us some great feedback. I mean, some of our feedback has been fantastic in the projects we do, and that keeps us kind of really motivated. In fact, only the other day we got a phone call yesterday from a client in one of the rail companies and said, oh, there's another rail company down south who were interested in the work you do on energy and carbon and decarbonisation. And we've told them all the great stuff that you've just done for us. And they put that in an email as well to them. And we just had a phone call with them today, actually. And it looks like, they really want us to do some work with them. And they're the kind of people that you just think, that's great, because they're almost doing our marketing for us, and they're putting our word out there. But it is on the back of obviously a lot of hard work and us pushing, going above and beyond what we do. But I think, to be honest, without key people like that who really back what you do, they give you that feedback and they understand the value of what you're doing. That is what kind of keeps us going, really, and keeps us pushing and saying, right, now we can go on to the next big thing and let's look for this next opportunity, because we know that we've done really good in this. Look at this feedback. And we're obviously ISOs and 9001, 14001, but we always get feedback forms from our clients as well. So, because I'm always keen to know, right, what did you think of this? How could we have done better? And like I said, we're always self-critical of ourselves. So we constantly want to improve and constantly be the best. That is our goal. We want to be the best in what we do. And that's very important. So there is a few key people within the client teams that give us that kind of motivation and inspiration to keep going.
So Azhar, before we go into the bonus questions, where can people go to learn more about you and Q Sustain?
So first thing I say is our website. We've got quite a lot of information on our projects and case studies. LinkedIn, we've got a lot going on. Starting to get more and more on that in terms of the work we've done. I'd say they're the kind of main places where you can contact us and reach out to us. So yeah, they're the kind of main places to go. I hope these bonus questions come with some prizes then.
You know what? We may have to give you a special prize, or some of our listeners. But first, Azhar, I want you to picture yourself as a superhero, right? What would be the one superpower you'd want, and why?
Wow, wasn't ready for that one. To be honest with you, if I could have one power, that'd probably be to stop climate change. Because if I had the power to do that, I know that I'll be saving millions of lives, and more importantly, the lives of our kids and their kids, our grandkids. They won't suffer as much, because I think it's almost like a hidden volcano below our feet, ready to erupt. Yeah. And if I was to say, if I could have one power, alleviate poverty, alleviate hunger, that would be great. But I know, and we all know as a fact, that if we can avoid climate change and climate catastrophe, then we're also going to limit people that are going to go hungry, people that are going to be affected by droughts, people that are going to be affected by floods and forest fires, having access to clean water, and crops that start to fail. All these things are going to be massive. Increase of diseases. So if it's one thing I could stop now, it's going to be, if I had one kind of special power, it would be that one, because I know what lies ahead if we don't is going to be very catastrophic for everyone.
It's really unique.
Absolutely. Now, this one is completely left field, Azhar, and I'm judging you now based on the answer I get.
Oh no,
Should pineapple ever be on a pizza?
no, no way. It just doesn't mix. I mean, how can you put pineapple on a pizza? You know, one's a fruit and one's like a bread-based thing. It's just you don't eat a piece of bread and have a pineapple in the other hand ever, do you? So why would you put it on a pizza with cheese and everything else on it?
Exactly. Thank you.
I don't
Thank
even know
you.
how it can be on the menu. It just doesn't make sense to me.
I don't
That's
know.
an easy one.
I always find people bizarre who have pineapple on a pizza. It's like, yes, keep the ham, or just keep it with cheese and tomato, but don't add pineapple. It doesn't taste
Chicken,
great.
you know, things like that. If they want to put that on, I don't mind.
Chicken,
But, as long as
anything
it's
but
organic.
fruit.
Yeah.
Anything but fruit. Oh well, if some people might say tomato is a fruit. And it is. Well, yeah, that's the only.
Vegetable.
That's the only fruit. If you want to say it's a fruit, that should be on a pizza. And then the last one, and then this one's always a good one. If you could throw a dinner party, tonight, and you can invite 4 people, dead or alive, to your dinner party, who would they be and why?
So this is outside family and friends. This is like anyone.
It could be family and friends, or it could be like role models, celebrities, whoever from history, dead or alive. Who would you invite?
4 people. Well, I'd want my parents there for a start. Muhammad Ali, I'd love to be, like say if he's dead or alive, he'd definitely be one. Another current role model of mine actually is Imran Khan. I think he's a great guy. He's going through a lot of struggle. If I can invite him, I'd actually take him out some of the struggle he's facing at the moment. So I'd do a favour there. Who else would I have?
Well, that would be your 4.
Yeah, I think that'd be 4.
Parents.
Parents, yeah.
Okay.
So
well, let's say if the 2 parents weren't there, if you had to have 2 other people from history, currently alive or dead, who would those other 2 people be?
So if I was to go back in time even further, I would probably say, so one of the people I've actually been, because I love my history, and one of the people I've been reading into he was called Mehmet II, and who he was, I think has been very underrated in history. He was the one who conquered Constantinople at the age of 21 and brought an end to actually the Roman Empire. But not only that, the reason why I'd want him there is I'd want to talk to him about, he was the only person who actually pursued Dracula in the original form, as we know. So Dracula was someone from the area of Transylvania, I've seen Eastern Europe. And he wasn't a bloodsucker as such, but he used to impale thousands of people. And I won't talk to you about what that means, but I'm sure you've heard about, the stick going right through your body and coming out through your mouth.
Yeah.
And he was the only person who pursued him because of all the wrong and evil he was doing. And he was obviously leader of the Ottoman Empire, Mehmet II. But I'd love to speak to him about the conquest of what he did, because at the age of 21, that was really a phenomenal age to do what he did and take over a city that for 1,000 years nobody could take, because the walls were seen as, couldn't be penetrated by anything. And as an innovator, I'd probably say he changed the course of history. But for some weird reason in history, you don't really hear much about him. But I saw this program on Netflix about him actually, called Mehmet versus Vlad, because it's called Vlad Dracula. And it's a very interesting series. I'd actually recommend everyone to watch that, because it does teach you a lot about history. But yeah, I'd say that guy was something else. I mean, you put him on par with like the Alexander the Great and others because of the age at which he achieved so much. The more I read about him, the more I'm just like thinking, wow, why is this guy like not even talked about, in history books? And I say he sacrificed a lot for his people, because the Ottomans were a people who were really nomadic. They were escaping the Mongol invasion from the east. They basically settled in tents in what is modern day Anatolia, Turkey. And from being someone who was really a small community that was really oppressed and being killed at mass by the Mongol invasion, to then go on and create one of the biggest empires ever seen by mankind, and one that lasted nearly 600 years. It's pretty amazing, really. You don't really hear things like that, again, repeated in history. So he'd definitely be one. So I've still got one more, haven't I?
You still got one more.
So who else would that be? Gosh, you really put me on the spot with this one.
I will say you've got me interested in that documentary about Mehmet and Vlad Dracula. So I will go off and do you know what it's called?
Yeah, so it's called Rise of the Ottomans. It's called Empires. It's got Rise of. There's two parts to it. One is the first series, is I think about 10 episodes, and that talks about how Mehmet was raised and where he came from and how he took Constantinople and the fall of the Byzantine Empire after that. And then the second series is all about him versus Dracula. Because the other thing I didn't mention is Vlad Dracula actually was raised in the Ottoman household. So as a young child, he was raised by them because his dad did a deal with Mehmet's dad that, look, if you don't trust me, because there's this trust issue between the two countries and the empires, he actually offered his kids and said, you look after my kids, and I'll offer you them to as a gesture that, I'm not going against you. And if I do betray you, then you've got my kids, then you'll obviously kill them or whatever. And but yeah, so that's what makes it even more interesting, in that they used to be childhood friends and they end up being arch enemies, because then he invades into the Ottoman camp at some point, and he kills and impales 24,800 village people in the Ottoman Empire, women, children, kids. And that's why he then pursued him. Mehmet then pursued him and basically drove him into the fields, where he still didn't get hold of him. But then within a year or two, someone found him from his infantry, and then basically chopped off his head. And they showcased his head then outside the gates of Constantinople as a message not to mess with him again, because he killed thousands. He killed all his close people, his messengers, the lot, you see. So, but yeah, I won't go too much into it more, but I'll spoil it for you now. But yeah, definitely.
The spoilers there, but I'm still keen to watch it.
Still watch it. But yeah, so right, fourth person. Gosh, who would I have then? A dinner party that'd be really interesting. There's so many interesting people in the world, isn't there? There's too many to choose from. You're really getting me stuck on this one now. I think another person I'd probably have is, who would I have? Really interesting person. I'd probably say Nelson Mandela, because he was a big role model for me. Yeah, I'd like to speak to him about his time in prison and how he got through it, basically. And the patience he had, because he had, a lot of forgiveness in his heart, and he was again, changed the course of history for South Africa. So yeah, I probably like him there. I know he'll be a good guest as well, because he won't be problematic. He'd be a sensible guest, I think. But yeah,
he would have been a legendary guest. Yeah,
definitely.
Right. As we're coming to a close, what's one final thought you'd leave our listeners with?
One final thought is, now that I've got this platform with you, is a message really to think about the way we live our lives going forward. And if there's any little thing we can do that will reduce that bit of energy impact on the environment, pollution, water, waste, biodiversity, and also help in terms of inclusion and fairness, then go out there and do it today. Don't delay.
Love it. Yeah. Short and impactful. Fantastic. Well, that's all we've got time for today, folks. I want to say a major thank you to Azhar for joining us on the See Me Be Me podcast. Make sure to follow him on social media. So he is on LinkedIn. You can find his name on the episode of this podcast if you'd like to connect with him, work with him, or even for younger people, it's important to have role models, especially in engineering as well. So Azhar is a great role model. So yeah, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube, on Spotify, and Apple Music, and all the major streaming platforms. And yes, we'll see you on another exciting episode of the See Me Be Me podcast. Take care.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Thanks, bye.
Blair,
Niall,
so what did you think of today's episode?
really loved hearing about Azhar's background, and it's just the struggles he had in his earlier life. Obviously, just telling us about his father's struggles, it's just overall his family struggles, and how just wanting to work hard and get his family out of that situation in terms of like poverty and whatnot. And then just about his father and how we would work practically 7 days a week to just make sure that his family were well taken care of, and he just used that inspiration from his father to make him into the person that he is today, with his in terms of his personal life and also in terms of the world of business. So a really inspiring role model, and how he's also just trying to change the industry and make changes within like diversity and inclusion. I just find his story really inspiring.
Well, it's a really interesting thing that that I picked up in the episode, and it was about Azhar came from a sporting background as well. So I remember in episode 2 when we interviewed Roosevelt, he said sport was really instrumental for the journey that he went on. Like, taught him discipline, and it's a team working aspect, and maybe that is the thing. That might be one of the key backgrounds for people who do work their way up the ladder to get to a senior management role, or even becoming entrepreneurs, if they've played a sport or done something that allows you to work as part of a team and develop discipline, and that being resilient, determined, and never giving up, that you're going to get there no matter what. That was really interesting, and the work that he's doing, phenomenal, working with low carbon tech and helping companies to become more sustainable in construction, and also about and I can relate. I can relate being an entrepreneur myself, is that the risks that you take to make sure that your vision comes to life, and you're going from working in an environment where you work in a 9 till 5 or an 8 till 6, and you come in, do your job, you get paid a certain amount, and that's that comfortability factor. But then you're going in, and you're having to, now you've left that world behind, and you are the boss of your own life, and you need to make sure that you can bring enough business in to pay yourself, to pay your staff. It changes your thought process. But if you've got the goals and the ambitions that you want to achieve, sometimes being an entrepreneur is the way to do around. And Azhar, one of his goals was to retire his family, and it's great to see that he's doing that, and it's really impressive what he's doing. Being an advocate and a trailblazer for diversity inclusion, trying to make a difference in the sector that he works in. I think that's really, really good. And everything that he does is not just about the profit, but it's creating real purpose and real social value, and making a difference, not just in Manchester, but in other areas that he's worked in, Birmingham, and other areas in the UK. Yeah, so overall, I thought that was a great episode, Blair. And we definitely have to get Azhar on another episode, because for me, there was so much more that I wanted to ask him.
Just not enough time, was there? So
no, just not enough time. And obviously, from a aspect, one of his role models was Muhammad Ali, which is one of your biggest role models, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really just from Muhammad's struggles. As I was saying in the podcast, in the 60s, and going through adversity, and just being one of the essentially the pioneers of a change in terms of just always speaking his mind. So it was really hard in that era, obviously, for someone from a person of color anyway to be speaking in the media about the struggles of their own community. So obviously Muhammad's had the inspiration to Azhar as well, and he's using that influence to make a change within his own company and within the industry as well. So it's really inspirational.
No, absolutely. So yeah, folks, make sure you do go and follow Azhar on his journey, and definitely follow Q Sustain. But that's all we've got time for, folks. Like I said, make sure to like and subscribe and also comment on the Blair Project social media channels. We are on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn at the Blair Project. And then we're on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Get Me Motoring. So that's all we've got time for, folks. Take care. Peace out.
Thank you for listening.
If you've liked today's episode, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. The Blair Project is on all major social media platforms, including Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube at The Blair Project. We're also on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Yes, we are on TikTok at Get Me Motoring. If you'd like to follow myself individually, I am on Instagram at Nile Henry and also LinkedIn at Nile Henry as well.
And if you want to follow myself, I'm on Instagram as BlairHenry_97 and also on LinkedIn as just Blair Henry.
So we look forward to having you on the next episode. So stay tuned. Take care.
Until next time.